Hello, my friends. Welcome to my April reading wrap-up. I have books falling over once again because apparently I read a decent amount of books in April. I'm quite surprised, especially considering I was sick for a few weeks, had fevers for a week, had pneumonia for another week, and normally when a person is somewhat sick, you can read, but I had no brain power during those weeks, so I didn't actually even read much then. But somehow I ended up with a massive stack of books that we're going to be talking about today. I'm going to be referring to my reading journal for this so I can remember all the books that I read. I have physical copies of most of them, but some of them were ebooks and I don't have a physical copy, or some had to go back to the library, so I will try not to forget any. I think I'll just go in the order of my list and see if I can get all these books in. It is quite a few, so I'll try to be short with my explanations. The first one on my list here is The Betrayal of Eden. This was the book for the indie book club that I host over on Instagram for the month of April, and I was surprised I went into it thinking I was going to like it, but then I was surprised at how much I liked it, if that even makes sense. I had high expectations and it met, possibly even exceeded them. And while I was enjoying it from the beginning, there was a point halfway through where I was like, okay, now I'm very invested. I read this incredibly quickly. I think it was 2 sittings for a almost 400-page book. So this is apparently a reimagining of The Count of Monte Cristo. Book 2 just came out. This is by Erin Phillips, and I can't wait to read book 2. So we've got this girl, her name is 16. So we have this 16-year-old girl named Eden. She works at a school for rich people, but cannot afford to be going there. But she has a lot of friends that are there. And there is this option for this promotion that she's applying for. We find out at the beginning that a lot of the people at the school think that she lives in this a poorer neighborhood, and she's embarrassed by it. She has her boyfriend walk her to her house. And then we find out quickly that that's not even her house. She actually lives even in a more poor area, like the slums. And then Eden has this rich friend that actually knows where she lives. And this rich friend has a servant named, I think his name's Hunter. He's an indentured servant. His father had some debts left owing when he died. And Hunter is looking into his father's research that he was working on when he died, and it has to do a lot with magic. So there's this grimoire magic that you can go and apply for something to help you, some kind of magical thing, depending what your need is. But we find out some complications from that as we go. And yeah, I don't know, there's just so much going on. I actually have a hard time explaining it, but I loved it. Want to read book 2 definitely by the end of the summer. Then the one I read for the Read Your Bookshelf Challenge was an indie book that I got sent to me. It's A Bounty of Secrets and Rebellion by Sharia Maurice. And this was a really good start to a series as well. I don't know how many books. I think there's 3 books out. I don't know if that's the full series. So we have 2 main characters. Princess Alana Bell Sundry. She is going to be turning 16 right away and is marrying the prince of the neighboring kingdom for political reasons when she turns 16. And she's more than willing to do so. She isn't hesitant to do what needs to be done. I think part of that is because she has had a very strained relationship with her father for a very long time. She doesn't know why. It's just always been strained. And then there are some attempts on her life, right at the start of the book. So they're trying to uncover what's going on there. Our other main character is a guy named Griff. He is the firstborn son of the chief of another land. And Griff and his younger brother, Arlo, I think is his name, and Arlo's betrothed. Arlo is going to become the next chief. And then Arlo's betrothed are needing to go on a journey to find this woman that has she's the oracle. So she has some kind of prophecy for them. And things kind of go terribly wrong. I had no idea where the book was going. And it ends on such a cliffhanger that I need to continue with book 2 sooner rather than later. Really enjoyed it. Next up was a Mrs. Polifax. This is the second last book in the series, so this should be number 13. Mrs. Polifax, Innocent Tourist by Dorothy Gilman. In this one, we are in Jordan. So every book, Mrs. Polifax goes to a different country. She is a 60-something-year-old CIA handler that just always gets into a little bit more trouble than is expected. I have raved about Mrs. Polifax now for 12 previous books. I don't know if there's like much I can say about this particular book. There's always some kind of like political mystery to it. And as someone that generally doesn't like too much politics, it's not so heavy that I don't know what's going on. So yeah, I only have one more book left and then I will be done this series. And then I know I will be rereading the first, I don't know how many at least. I feel like I still love Mrs. Polifax, but they're not as funny or unexpected as the series has progressed. After like book 5 to 7, I feel like they're still good. I still like hanging out with her, but they're not as good as the first ones, in my opinion. Then another one I read was Waterfall by Lisa T. Berggren. This is a time travel book. Actually, I read 2 time travel books this month. Oh, I kind of didn't put that together. It says, what do you do when your knight in shining armor lives literally 700 years away? So we have this girl, I think she's like 16 or 17, her and her younger sister. They are in like some ruins in Italy because their mother is some kind of scholar of ancient times. And the sisters end up going into this cave, and the one we follow goes 700 years back. So we're in 14th century Italy. It was very interesting. Like, I know no Italian history from that time, and I think it was still enjoyable. I'm very curious to see where the series goes. What was her main character's name again? Gabby. She ends up entering like a battle between these 2 houses and ends up going with the one that seems much less creepy than the other. It was really interesting to get like the details of like 14th century Italy, even like the 14th century time. There's one, this is not a spoiler or anything, but like there's one portion of the book where Gabby is trying to help this guy who is having a lot of breathing troubles breathing, and she thinks that he's actually allergic to stuff. So she's like trying to help clean out the space and think of like what kind of stuff did they have in the 14th century that he could use for like medicine. I thought that part was so fascinating. And I want to say that this is a 4-book series. Yeah, I want to continue with this as well and see what happens, where things go, because things are going somewhere. Then I have another little one. I read The 7 Dials Mystery by Agatha Christie, and then went on to watch the Netflix. It was on Netflix, right? There's a 3-episode series, very mini series, about it. And I will say that the series makes no sense on TV because it's called The 7 Dials Mystery, but they completely change that aspect of the storyline, and it doesn't make nearly as much sense as it does in here. It is a little bit more kind of like political than a lot of Agatha Christie's books. This is the 2nd book in the, I think it's Lieutenant Battle is the series name. We followed Battle as he came across, what was the house's name? Chimneys is the house where the first book kind of took place. And he met a young woman named Bundle there. And Bundle that's not her real name. I can't remember what her real name is. But she just goes by Bundle, is our main character in here. I thought the book was so much better. Things just, made more sense. They changed some of the twists in the show, the movie, which is good because that kept me on my toes more than reading the book and then watching exactly the same thing, but I think the book is better. Another one I read, I actually do kind of own a physical copy. My daughter does. It's More Than We Remember by Christina Suzanne Nelson. I actually got a copy from the library, so I didn't have to borrow her copy because hers she just recently got, and I didn't want to wreck it. So this is a story where we have a few different characters going through really hard times. So we have one who was a counselor, and something went wrong, and so she is now trying to make her living as an artist. We've got another lady whose husband at the beginning of the book is in a car accident, ends up killing a woman, and they find out that he has some alcohol and drugs in his system, and he has no recollection of the time. So that's like throwing things into chaos. And then there is a police officer who, I think like a year before, her husband was in an accident, and it's totally messed with his personality, and like he physically can't do a lot. So it was a hard book for me to start because everyone was struggling so hard, but there are great themes of friendship and like people just coming alongside others and helping them through a hard time, even when people weren't friends. There's a lot about forgiveness. I really enjoyed it. She does a really good job with her books. They're contemporary, but they're also like mystery. They're also kind of like got a little bit of some kind of social justice or some kind of justice theme running through there. And then a lot of like faith elements. I really love her just combination of different themes and genres that she pulls in. Then I read a poetry book. It is right here. It is Tracing the Lines by Lori Hirschberger. This was, why are we focusing over there? Yeah. This was a really cute little poetry book with quite a bit of variety. So the author is from Kansas, I want to say, but has been living in Thailand for the last 12 years. So there are some poems about the prairies, and then some about like living in Thailand, and there's some good variety. The last few poems were pretty funny, or some of them were. There is one that I laughed out loud. It's got the general like cadence and a few words from In Flanders Fields, which I don't know, did those of you that are American, did you grow up reciting that poem every Remembrance Day ceremony in school? Because we did as kids, but I'm not sure if that's just a Canadian thing. But this is called In Mother's Garden. In Mother's Garden, the beans grow from here to Jake Beachy's row on row. And then it turns out the kids really hate bean gardening, and it's just kind of a funny one. So there was some poems where I underlined. This one I like underlined and starred. I just really enjoy poetry. This one's called If. If tomorrow should come, let it not rise in splendor and color, in the brightness and glory of cloudless days, but let it rise in holy silence, shrouded with the grace of quiet hope, and mists that cloak solitary ways. So if you're into poetry, I would recommend this one. Then the other time travel book I read is The Things We Can Change by Corinne Norton. This is an adult time travel book where we follow a character named Ray. She is in the future. I think she's like in 2080 something or other, and she is called a traveler. She is paired up with someone called, what is their name? Shoot, totally blanking. It's the person, she's going to travel back in time, and then she has someone that's staying there in the future or present day or however you want to word it, that she will be able to communicate with. They have like chips, things behind their ear kind of embedded into their skull that allows them to communicate through the time travel. It's really bothering me that I can't think of what it is. A traveler and no, it's not coming. So with time travel, it can get confusing because there are a few different jumps, and there's people that are like together in 2080 whatever, and then they're a few days apart when they come back to like 2030 something. So the idea is that in 2030-ish or something, this massive bomb went off in this plant. It ended up releasing this sickness that now in 2080 they are really struggling with. It's very much affecting everything. So they're trying to go back to stop this bombing, to make sure that this plague or pandemic or whatever it is, this virus is not released. And so we follow Ray as she travels back in time and then is talking to her handler guy. There was a name, it's just driving me nuts, whatever, in 2080, whatever, as they try to like figure out, okay, who set off the bomb? Like, how do we get into this place? Like, there's so many aspects to it. I really enjoyed it. Would like a physical copy of that one for sure. Then I read a nonfiction. I read My Dear Hemlock. I mean, I said nonfiction because I'm part of a in-person Christian, mostly nonfiction book club, but this is fiction. My Dear Hemlock is a riff off of the Screwtape Letters, and it's done really well, except that this is, in the Screwtape Letters, we have a head demon writing to their underdog demon about how to attack this man who has just become a Christian. In this one, we have the same thing, except our characters are female. So our demons are female, and then our main character is female. And we follow her from, I don't know if it's like she just becomes a Christian. She's like probably in her teens or early 20s. And then we follow her until she's elderly. And there are quite a few chapters, like short chapters though. It's a decently short book. Definitely the chapter on prayer I found really good. It's the kind of book where I think different chapters will hit harder in different seasons depending what your current struggle is or your stage of life. I found it harder with this book to remember like who was writing, and I've heard people say this with the Screwtape Letters as well, but like when the demons are writing the letters, they're saying our Father, but they're meaning Satan. And when they're saying the enemy, they mean God. And for some reason in the Screwtape Letters, my brain can figure that out. But in this one, my brain kept being like, oh yeah, like that's the bad guy. Like that part was a bit more jarring or a bit of a struggle for me, but it's not that long of a book. It's under 200 pages, so I could handle it. So I really enjoyed it. Definitely would recommend it. Okay, so those were the books that were on my April TBR, and then I deviated. But a bunch of them are on my spring TBR as well, so that is what it is. Maybe that makes it better. I read Never Fall Again by Lynn H. Blackburn because this was recommended twice on the Christian Fiction Booktuber Collab that I hosted at the beginning of the year. This is the first book in the Gossamer Falls trilogy. I think it's a trilogy, or maybe there's currently 3 books out. Not sure if it's going to be more. So this is Christian suspense. Well, it is, but it takes a while for things to happen in some ways. So our main character is Landry. She has a young daughter. Her husband was killed years before, and she is working as a pottery artist, which I've always wanted to try my hand at pottery. It looks so cool. I don't think I really ever will, but I really enjoyed living vicariously through her in this. So Landry is about to get a house built. She is a pottery artist at this retreat center where rich people go. And it's very kind of off the grid in a way. And people, you don't talk about who goes there. So it's very high end. So she makes a lot of money and she's ready to settle down and get a house built. So she goes and meets with construction business, a guy named Calum Shaw. He has a construction business that does very extravagant builds. But then suspicious things start happening. There's a fire. It feels like Landry is being targeted, and there is some not suspicious necessarily. Her in-laws from her past never seemed to think that after their son died, they could just have custody of their granddaughter, and didn't trust Landry to be able to support her. Yeah, so it's a series. I think we'll be following different people in each of the books, but I enjoyed it. Then I did a reread, Okay for Now by Gary D. Schmidt. I will just always and forever rave about Wednesday Wars and this one. I love them so much. This is actually only my second time reading Okay for Now. Highly recommend the audiobook, although it's great to have a physical book too, because there are pictures from the James Audubon's Birds of America book in here. So we follow Doug Switek, and this is in the summer of 1968. So Doug is in book 1, so I would recommend reading Wednesday Wars before this one. But his family has had to move. He has a decently rough home life. His father is not a nice guy. Doug has had a hard time. One of the things about Gary D. Schmidt is he doesn't come out and say things all the time. Things are not slowly revealed. How do I even word this? He hints at things, and you have to add 2 + 2 to equal 4 to figure it out in a good way. I think it's because these are upper middle grade. It shows how smart he thinks kids are, and he doesn't talk down on them. And it just really adds to the story. But one of the things Doug does in the summer is he works on drawing, and he draws the birds from the book. And yeah, I don't know. I can't say enough good things about these books. And then because of the time period, there is also an element of the Vietnam War in here. In this book, Doug's oldest brother, Lucas, is serving in Vietnam. The next one I think had to go back to the library. Yes, I read Under the Tulip Tree by Michelle Shockley. So I found this book to be a unique time period. We start out, the prologue or the first couple chapters is 1929. So our main character is turning 16. Her family is planning her this huge birthday bash. Her father is a banker, and her birthday is the day the stock market crashes. The birthday party's canceled. Her father goes into his office. Their life kind of goes downhill. And then we jump 6 or 7 years, and our main character, what was her name? Lorena. I think she just goes by Rena. She had always wanted to be a writer, and she got laid off from one newspaper. So she gets a job from, let's see if it says here, the Federal Writers Project, where they are supposed to be documenting stories of people who were once slaves. And so she gets this list of people to interview, and the first person she interviews ends up sucking her in. She gets to hear her story. So we're also getting flashbacks to the slave that she interviews. Her name is Frankie. She's 101. So we're getting a lot of her story it's a 100-year story, really. And she had a very interesting story. And it was one of those books where I just got totally sucked in. And my thing with dual timeline books is I'm always I don't want to leave this timeline. I want to keep going. And then we get into the next timeline, and then I'm no, I don't want to leave this one. Yeah, dual timeline is done well because it usually leaves you on a cliffhanger when you swap timelines, and then you just need to keep reading. Another historical fiction I read, actually one of the things I noticed about this time, when I was reading a bunch of historical fiction, is that I actually like to listen to historical fiction because it's not my favorite genre to sit and read. I like historical fiction because often it's written well, but because it teaches me stuff. But it's just not my favorite genre to sit and read. But if I listen to audio, so I can be, taking in a historical fiction book while making supper or cleaning, then it feels like I'm not wasting as much time. I don't know if that makes sense. Generally, if I'm sitting and reading, I want to be reading something that I really love, which is generally not historical fiction, even though I can love some of it. I don't know. As humans, we don't always make sense. So anyway, the other next historical fiction I listened to was These Blue Mountains by Sarah Loden Thomas. And this one was really interesting. So our main character, her name is Hedda. She is German. Her fiance died. He vanished after being sent to an enemy alien camp during the Great War. And then 15 years later, there was a picture in a newspaper that she saw. It was like a picture from the States. And she saw his name in a photograph. And Hedda has been living with her fiance's mother this whole time for 15 years. And her mother-in-law wants her to go and bring his body back. So she travels to the United States to do so. But when they dig up his grave, there's actually a woman's body in there. And so there's a major mystery that needs to be unraveled. This was another very unique take on a historical fiction book, because we're in between the wars here, but kind of still trying to uncover what did happen during the war, especially in a enemy alien camp. So I did enjoy it. Next is something completely different. I read Death of the Couch Potato's Wife. I think at this point I was feeling this is when I was getting sick. So here and the next few are what I felt like would be lighter books for not feeling well. Death of a Couch Potato's Wife, the cover made me feel like it was going to be a murder mystery that's a little bit more rom-com, light and funny, because my brain was just not working. It wasn't quite the same. So at the beginning of the book, there's a body that is found, and it's the wife of this guy that owns this furniture store. He's the Couch King. So the people in the neighborhood call him the Couch Potato. So she's the Couch Potato's wife. And our main character is this woman's neighbor, and she is the one that comes across the body. She just moved into the neighborhood, I want to say within the last year or two, and is really questioning whether or not she should be there. Also trying to figure out who killed her, and is there more going on? They seem to be a pretty close-knit community. This is our main character moved out of the city for a bit more of the small town life, but then, everyone knows everyone. Everyone seems like they're covering up for everyone. And yeah, it was just a fun mystery story that was definitely what I needed for the time. And then I went on to read 3 really short books because the brain. So these are all by Austin Kleon. I read Keep Going, Steal Like an Artist, and Show Your Work. He is coming out with a new book in the next couple of months. So these are just creative inspiration books. He has lots of these are blackout poetry. He's got lots of pictures and illustrations and different things throughout, with just advice on how to be more creative. This one is 10 Things Nobody Told You About Being Creative. Show Your Work is 10 Ways to Share Your Creativity and Get Discovered. Keep Going, 10 Ways to Stay Creative in Good Times and Bad. And then, he's got a new book coming out, so I just enjoy them. Always a good time. Oh, then I went in a different vein, and I read The Crucified Life by A.W. Tozer, which means I have completed this, the Essential Tozer collection. First I read The Pursuit of God, then The Purpose of Man, and now The Crucified Life. Tozer is definitely one of my favorite Christian nonfiction writers from times past. He was kind of writing around the 40s, I think. Authored more than 40 books, so probably wrote books over a long period of time. But they don't feel as old as they actually are. I feel like he's very relatable. I don't necessarily agree with everything that he says, but I enjoy I can ignore a few things. And this one is the crucified life will lead you to the cross so you can be raised to new life in Christ. And it's really just about, well, he says right here, what I mean by the crucified life is a life wholly given over to the Lord in absolute humility and obedience, a sacrifice pleasing to the Lord. And then at the beginning of chapter 2, it says, many Christians talk about living the crucified life, but nothing in their lives indicates they have begun the journey. And so that's kind of where the book starts. And kind of his purpose is to spur people on. And it's always great to, I don't know, get a push, be reminded of our purpose here. Although that was more number 2, the purpose of man. But yeah, enjoyed that. I have another Tozer that I want to read pretty soon. Oh, okay. I shared quite a bit about this book on my Substack. And then I did share it in another video here. But Mistress Pat by L.M. Montgomery. And I also shared that I was listening to the audio narration on YouTube. Well, let me just give it a little disclaimer. The audio narration ends like, I don't know, 10 to 15 chapters before the book ends. The last one was posted 4 years ago, and then there was never anything posted again. So if you're listening to the audio on YouTube, no, that's not all. Plus, I was not following along when I was listening, but I would move my bookmark. Whenever I would pause, I would move my bookmark to where I was at. And there was a chapter where a page and a half, the last page and a half of the chapter wasn't included. So I enjoyed the audio narration, but a few disclaimers. So in this one, we're following Patricia Gardner from the ages of 20 to 31. She loves where she lives. She loves Silverbush. She loves her house. She loves her trees. She loves her garden. She loves her cats. She's just so content to be there. She doesn't want anything to change, but things change. People that she loves and are part of her life, fall in love and get married and move away. And it's hard for Pat to see all that happening. She is also just very content. I think that's one of the things I appreciate about Pat. She just loves her life. I mean, she doesn't want things to change, but that's also good. That means she likes how it is, right? In true L.M. Montgomery form, even though I was listening to the audio, I still had to pop in and underline certain parts. Some things I were so good, I had to underline or highlight them and underline them. Oh, I think I shared this exact quote on Substack. How terrible it must be not to see and feel. Okay, wait, I cannot read. Let's start this over. How terrible it must be not to see and feel beauty, said Pat softly. I'm so glad I can find happiness in all lovely little things, like that cloud. It seems to me that every time I look out of a window, the world gives me a gift. Yeah, some pages there are multiple highlights and underlines. I really enjoyed it. The audiobook narration definitely helped me get into Judy's accent more. And when I read the last however much I needed to physically read, I feel like I could read it easier because I could hear Judy's accent in my head. So if you're going to start with book 1, which is Pat of Silverbush, that YouTube channel, which I will still leave linked below, does have Pat of Silverbush on YouTube. I'm assuming that one's completed because she did that one before this one. Maybe listen to at least some of the audio so you can get Judy's accent because it's pretty hard. Judy is from Scotland, I think, but she came from Scotland in 1850 or something like that. And the way her accent is written can be pretty hard to read and understand. Loved the book though, going to be one of my favorite Lucy Maud Montgomerys. Now what? Okay, another Christian nonfiction, Don't Waste Your Life by John Piper. I found this, I think, at a thrift store a little while ago, and I honestly, even now, do not remember if I've read this book before. I kind of think I have, but I didn't have it on Goodreads, so I'm not sure. This book is written for, I think it's kind of written for people about my age. At first I thought it would be written for the teens and 20s to not waste their life. But he also talks a lot about like not wasting retirement, not just living for retirement and then spending your retirement frivolously. There we go. Okay, random quote that I have highlighted here that I'll read to you. In wartime, we ask different questions about what to do with our lives than we do in peacetime. We ask, what can I do to advance the cause? What can I do to bring victory? What sacrifice can I make, or what risk can I take to ensure the joy of triumph? In peacetime, we tend to ask, what can I do to be more comfortable, to have more fun, to avoid trouble, and possibly avoid sin? And so he talks about how, like, we need to view the Christian walk as war and not peace. And we need to be asking the right questions, living like we're in a war, not living just to make ourselves as comfortable as we possibly can. One more quote. But whatever you do, find the God-centered, Christ-exalting, Bible-saturated passion of your life and find your way to say it and live for it and die for it, and you will make a difference that lasts. You will not waste your life. Definitely recommend this if you haven't read it, or maybe even if you have. Okay, I have a DNF actually. I did not finish, but am willing to re-pick up A Morbid Taste for Bones by Ellis Peters. It was my understanding that this is a 13th or 14th century monk murder mystery type story. And so this is 3 books, the first 3 books in this series, the Brother Cadfael Mysteries series. I got what my Kobo said was 25% into the first book, and nothing is happening. I mean, these monks are trying to go and get the bones of this saint brought over to their monastery. And there is going to be someone that dies at some point, but like I was just so bored. So I have heard good things from people before. If you are one of those people, you gotta talk it up more for me to continue it. I've left my bookmark in here. I'm willing to re-pick it up, but oof. It was hard. I've been talking so long, I had to change my battery out. I only have a couple more books to close things off here. The next one I read was Before I Called You Mine by Nicole Deese. This book made me feel something really funny, actually. It's not funny at all. In this one, let me tell you about it and then I'll explain some things. We have Lauren Bailey. She is a first grade teacher that I think she's about 30 or so, and she has decided she wants to adopt as a single woman. She's gone on a bunch of dates, never found anyone. So she's made the decision to stay single so she can adopt as a single woman. As is normal with the adoption process, if you, like the way you sign up, your family has to stay that way until after the adoption. So like, for example, in the book here, she has to stay single. I think, how is it? Like if she were to get married, she wouldn't be able to adopt for 2 years after, because they want you to be able to bring in an adopted child to a stable home. And that is just one of the ways that they say. For us with our adoption process, based on the province that we were living in, you had to have a year between, like if you had a biological kid, you had to have a year between having that kid and bringing in an adopted kid, or a year between adopting 2 non-biological siblings. Yeah, it's like very common. So she is determined that she's going to be single because she really wants to adopt. And so as an adoptive mother, I can could relate to the bones of her story. She doesn't have a great relationship with her family. She became a believer a few years before, and they didn't take that very well. So she's been in the adoption process, I think for like a year or something, and not told her parents or her sister. And at the beginning of the book, the other teacher that teaches grade 1, I think, broke her hip or something. So there's a substitute. Of course, it's this guy that totally ends up catching Lauren's eye, and she keeps having this conundrum of like, am I going to adopt or not? Like there's a big thing on the line with pursuing a relationship here or not. I really enjoyed the book. Nicole Deese is actually also an adoptive mom, so She knows what she's going through. The adoption process for China is very different from where we adopted from. But I've had a lot of friends that have adopted from China, so I'm like well versed in Chinese adoptions. And yeah, I thought that was really well done. The weird thing that this book did to me is it kind of made me want to go back to teaching. So what I'm saying is like this funny thing, like, I don't know, I just reading this and reading the main character's love for teaching and for the children in her classroom and how she can be a like stable person in their lives while they're in her class. I was like, oh, you're making me want to get back into teaching. I am not going to at this point because it doesn't really work. But yeah, that was an unexpected thing that came out from this book. Definitely recommend that. For sure. If you guys have any other like adoption books to recommend to me, I'm always up for that. Adoption fiction. Then I finished another Christian nonfiction. Like this was the month for Christian nonfiction. Habits for a Sacred Home by Jennifer Pepito. This is 9 practices from history to anchor and restore modern families. Really enjoyed this book. So we go over 9 habits, but we also focus on 9 different women from history that exemplified these habits. So for habits of prayer, we've got Amy Carmichael. Habits of order, we've got Elizabeth Elliot. Habits of stability, we've got Ruth Bell Graham. That was really cool. I need to keep this book out because at the end of every chapter, she has a verse to memorize, a prayer, and then of course like further reading, and I want to read a bunch of these books, a recipe to try. I probably won't try the recipes. I don't try recipes unless I see a picture. Oh, and then there's also a study guide where you can like go over some stuff. Definitely recommend this book. It has made me inspired to read more Christian biographies, and one of the ones she shared is very obscure, and it was actually a woman that was in Saskatchewan, which doesn't happen very often, that I would find a Christian biography that's set like where I grew up. So that was really cool. And then the last book that I finished was The Warden by Anthony Trollope. I just had the audiobook and it was decently short and I had a bunch of stuff to do in the kitchen, so I listened to it. And I will be in the minority with mostly not enjoying it, but there are some personal reasons for it. So in this book, we have this man. He is the warden of an almshouse. So it's like there's these 12 old men that would be broke and they were like in a hospital and probably would be dead if it weren't for the warden. The warden kind of takes care of them. He gives them some money. But then this lawsuit comes out where some people think that the warden is getting too much money and not giving enough away. And so the warden is quite attacked by different people. And the people that he takes care of kind of even turn on him. And reading this like a week or two ago or whatever it was during a time when there was like a bunch of church politics stuff, not necessarily going on with our church, but like adjacent. So I felt like I was reading about church politics and like living through some church politics. It's also a time when like there was just some other hard church related things and it just all felt like too much. I will say that the warden is an excellent character. I love how he handled everything that was going on. I really admire him as a character, but it was just all a little much for me. This is a series. I do own at least the second book, so I will eventually continue it. And I think that it's less political as it goes. I don't even know what the second one's about. But this was on my list of classics to read for this year. So I'm going to just check my list here in my reading journal. How many? I haven't read very many of them, I don't think. I've read 4 now. So that means I was actually like on pace. I've read 1 a month so far. I'm actually doing, let's just do a quick check-in. So I've done 4 out of 12 of my classics. I've done 2, 4, 6 out of 12 of my fiction TBR, and only 1 out of 12 for my reread TBR. I'm just not the world's biggest rereader, but hopefully it'll get better. Yeah, so those are all the books that I read in April. Quite a few. Only 1 DNF, surprisingly enough. We'll see if May ends up being the same. I'm assuming not, because we got a lot of snow in April, and May is shaping up to be a lot warmer. So let me know, what were some of your favorites from April? Have you read any of these? Did you enjoy them? Curious to hear your guys' thoughts.